Welcome back, guys. I think I'm gonna call this type of video something. I don't know what, so maybe you guys can help me out. So this is really just things that I see come up a lot in the therapy room, and hopefully it's helpful for you in your relationships. Today we're talking about flexible thinking. So a lot of times we get stuck in my way or the highway type of thing, and flexible thinking is something that really comes in handy when it comes to relationships, romantic relationships, or it could be with a parent, it could be with a child, it could be with coworkers, with friends. This is something that's super simple, so I'm really excited to share it, but it can be difficult. When our emotions get involved in relationships, it's really difficult to yield to the other person, and so we can use flexible thinking to come up with solutions. So I'm gonna get into that in a little bit. If you are interested and you want me to talk more about therapy things, then make sure to like this video so I know it's something that you're interested in. And don't forget to subscribe. If you hit the button below, there's also a little bell, and if you hit that bell, that's what gives you a notification when I post videos. So if you subscribed but you're not getting notifications, then make sure to hit that bell, and then that should fix that. So I wanted to check in about my plants, because on my first video you guys were really interested and I got so many messages about my plants. So unfortunately, the hyacinth that I had that I showed you guys and I was like, what the heck is happening with this plant? That one died very quickly after that video, but I did get a new plant and I'm trying not to kill it, so I'll show you guys. It's just a little succulent and it's really cute. And it has like 3 in here, and I have it on my windowsill so it's getting a lot of sun, but succulents are supposed to be really easy to take care of. But last time my husband got me a succulent, the first time I watered it, it died. But I was reading online that you're supposed to soak it in water and then let it drain and not do it too often. So I'm gonna try that and see how it goes. I need to water it now. I'll also show you guys the update on my basil plant, because that's my little pride and joy that it's still going. So let's go see. It's just awesome because it's like a smart plant. So this is where you water it, and when this part goes down, it tells you how much water you need. Then you water it until it floats back to the top and is even. So like right now, it needs a little bit of water. It's a little bit uneven. But anyway, that's what it looks like. That artificial light is cool because it's on a timer, and so it turns on for 16 hours a day and then off for 8 hours a day. And so it gets like the perfect amount of light. It tells you exactly how much water it needs. It's been doing really well, but now, hang on, let me show you. That white part in there, it's growing mold on the dirt, and I don't know how to avoid that. Because you water it here, you don't water it in the dirt, but there's a little bit of mold on this one. You can see it, that little white part, and then this one's kind of, it's hard to tell, but that one's covered in mold. And it's still growing, but it's not thriving as much as it was before. So if you guys could help me out and let me know what to do when my plants are molding, that would be really great. I'm gonna try to water this succulent. Okay, so I got the succulent out of the pot because it says you're supposed to drain it and soak the dirt with water. It's very dry, so I think it needs water. And so I'm gonna soak the dirt and then let it drain and then put it back in the pot. Tell me if I'm doing that right or wrong. I don't really know. Let's see. I hope this doesn't kill it. Okay, so it's draining out the bottom. I'm gonna leave it sitting in the sink so that it can drain all the way. And then we'll see. See how it goes. Okay, I actually have to go to a meeting with my supervisor. I meet with her every week, and this is during the time between I finish my master's and I get licensed 2 years after my master's, after you do a certain amount of hours working with clients and pass the licensure exam. So I meet with my supervisor every week to talk about my clients, my cases, and just like what's going on with them, how I can work with them better, how I can grow as a therapist, and things like that. So I'm gonna go to my meeting and then I'm gonna come back and tell you guys all about flexible thinking. For me, it'll be like 2 hours, but for you guys, it'll be just like that. I'm back. So I had my meeting with my supervisor and now I'm back. I'm sitting in a different spot right now because it's later. It's 5:20 now and it's darker and it's starting to rain. So if you hear loud crashes of thunder, that's what's happening outside. But anyway, there's better light in this spot, so I'm sitting in this direction right now. Let's get to it. Talking about flexible thinking. What is flexible thinking and how can we use it? How can it better our relationships? This can be a huge cause of conflict for people, but learning simple ways to alter the way that we think can be a huge source of peace if we incorporate that into our relationships. So, 2 types of thinking, all or nothing thinking and flexible thinking. All or nothing thinking is my way or the highway. So I have an idea of how something is supposed to go, how something is supposed to be, and I think this is the right way to do it or the right solution or the best solution. But when we get stuck in all or nothing thinking that my thinking and my idea is the best idea, that's where it can cause conflict when somebody else has another different best idea. So then we have to move into flexible thinking. So we have to go from our all or nothing, my way or the highway thinking to flexible thinking. And how do we get there? So we're going to talk about some examples of how to do this with different types of relationships so you kind of get the idea, and then we'll go into how it plays into romantic relationships and moving in with somebody. That's when a lot of these things come up. And since I'm in that newlywed phase where we've just moved in together 3 months ago after we got married, we're seeing a lot of that here. So I want to talk about that and see if it can help you guys out too. So when we talk about flexible thinking, the goal is important. When we have all or nothing, my way or the highway type of thinking, the goal is for me to get what I want. The goal is, well, I think that this should be this way, and so I need to fight and kind of battle it out verbally or however it goes until the other person yields and says, okay, whatever, we'll do it your way. And then I win. That's the goal. I won because I got them to do it my way. You might not actively be thinking that that's the goal, but when it comes down to it, what are you trying to do? Are you trying to win that argument and get them to do what you want, or is it something else? So that's one goal. When we have all or nothing thinking, the goal is for me to win, for me to get what I want, and for the other person to let go of what they thought was right and to do what I want. Flexible thinking has a different goal. It has a common goal with the person, most often. It doesn't have to have a common goal. We'll see that when we talk about the parent-child example. But most often there's a common goal that can be found, even if it's with somebody that you don't agree with at all, you don't like them, you don't get along with them. This can work with any type of relationship, whether it's conflictual or loving. It can be really good either way. So we want to figure out what that common goal is so we can figure out how to get to the solution rather than just getting to what I want or what I think is the best solution. But we have to come up with a good solution or a best solution, not my best solution. So it's a little bit different than when we have all or nothing. My way, I want to win, versus flexible, we want to come up with the best solution or a solution that's going to work for us together, not just what I think is the best thing. So let's start with a really easy example. A really easy example is with friends. So think about your best friend and it's Friday night and you guys want to see a movie together. So you want to spend time together, you want to catch up, and you want to go see a movie. There's a comedy movie that just came out and you really want to see the comedy movie. You're all about the comedy, you want to laugh, you want to have a good time, you want to let off steam. But your friend is more into drama, things like that, and there's a drama movie that also just came out, so they really want to see that movie. So you have options. There's some things that are going to happen. You can either say, well, I want to see the comedy movie and I'm picking the movie tonight, so we're seeing the comedy movie. Or they can say, we're seeing the drama movie. I want to see the drama movie, that's it. Okay, so this is a really simple, easy example with friends, because usually a friendship relationship is not going to go like that. You're not going to say, me, I want this, I want comedy, I get comedy, otherwise I'm not hanging out with you. We're not 3 years old. That's how 3-year-olds debate things when they're playing, this is mine, and they're fighting over it. That's not how friends usually act with each other, so that's probably not how it's going to go. But what are the options? In all or nothing thinking, one person's going to say, we have to see the comedy, and the other person's going to say, we have to see the drama, and there's no flexibility with that. Flexible thinking would say, okay, there's probably more than 2 movies playing. Let's look at the other options, and let's see another movie that we can both agree on, that we both think this movie would be enjoyable for us to see together. And what's the common goal here? The common goal is for us to see a movie together and spend time together as friends. So it's not me going to see a comedy by myself and her going to see a drama by herself. That's not the goal. The goal is to spend time together. So how can we get there? What other movies are playing and what can we agree on? If not that, another solution might be, let's see both of them. If we have a lot of time and we want to do that, let's see them back to back. Let's go to the drama first, let's go to the comedy second. Or we can say, let's see the comedy tonight and let's see the drama tomorrow, or next week or next month when we get together again. So coming up with different solutions. So that's an easy example. We list out 3 or 4 different options. So we have lots of options. Now let's pick one, pick the best one that we think will work for us. So let's look at a different example of how to use flexible thinking in our lives. Let's look at a parent-child relationship. So let's say the child is 5 years old and they go to private school, so they wear a uniform. But they're in that phase where they want to wear their superhero costume every single day. So mom is having a hard time because the child is getting ready for school and only wants to wear Spider-Man today. So they want to be Spider-Man. That's it. What are you gonna do? You can either say, no, put on your uniform, we're going to school. And then they are saying, no, I want to be Spider-Man today. Okay, but no, you can't put on your uniform and we have to go to school. So you can go back and forth. No, you can't do that. Well, no, I want to be Spider-Man. It's gonna go back and forth until they start throwing a tantrum. Or you can use flexible thinking and look at what options you have. So, okay, we understand that this child cannot wear Spider-Man to school because he has to wear a uniform. But what are the options? What options can you give to be flexible so that you can meet in the middle somehow? It's not just, no, you can't wear Spider-Man to school, and it's not just, yes, I wear Spider-Man to school. There are more options to talk about. Number 1, mom can say, okay, we gotta wear your uniform to school, but as soon as I pick you up, I'm gonna have Spider-Man in the car and you can change into it right there in the back seat, and then you get to be Spider-Man for the rest of the day, and even if you want, you can sleep in that costume. Okay, like we gotta have some flexibility. Option number 2, we can wear Spider-Man's shirt under the clothes. So under your uniform. So you can say, okay, if you don't want that option, what about underneath your clothes so nobody knows? It's a secret. Only you know that you're Spider-Man today. You can even wear Spider-Man's socks. You can even wear the Spider-Man shirt. We can put the cape in your backpack, but you can't wear it outside the uniform because it's a secret right now. But when you get out of school, then you can bust it out and you can wear the whole costume and you can be Spider-Man for the rest of the day. Okay, so these are ways to get flexible with a 5-year-old so that there's no tantrum being thrown. All these tools that we're talking about with learning how to think more flexibly can be used with seriously anybody. You can use it with your boss, you can use it with your coworkers, you can use it with your friends, with your child, with your parent. You can use it with yourself even. We're gonna do that example next. And then you can use it in your romantic relationship with your boyfriend, girlfriend, fiance, spouse, whoever it is. You can use this with seriously anybody. So let's talk about with yourself. If you have all or nothing thinking with yourself, let's use the example of somebody tends to be an anxious person. So they struggle with anxiety and also a little bit with claustrophobia, things like that. But they heard about scuba diving and they just think that sounds like the coolest thing they ever heard. And they really want to get into scuba diving. But they just think, well, I have anxiety, I have claustrophobia, there's no way I could be a scuba diver. Okay, so you can keep telling yourself that, all or nothing. Either I'm good, I don't have any problems and I can be a scuba diver, or I have anxiety, I have claustrophobia, and I can't be a scuba diver. That is all or nothing. So we want to be flexible with ourselves in our thinking. So what are our options? We have to look at more options. We want to always come up with like at least 3 or 4 options, even if they seem silly and like, that's not gonna work, okay, whatever. But let's come up with more options, even if it might not work, so that we get out of our all or nothing thinking and get into thinking about what other possibilities there might be. So for that person, what are her options? Number 1, start with snorkeling. Have you ever been snorkeling? Get on a mask, get on some fins, jump in the ocean, just stay on the surface. See how it feels to look at some of the equipment, to feel some of the equipment, to use a little bit of the equipment, and baby steps. Just do one thing at a time. It's not all or nothing. There's a lot of stages in between. Maybe talk to a scuba diver, somebody who's been diving for a long time or a professional. Talk to them and see what it's like for them. Do people struggle with feeling closed in? Is that something that people don't struggle with? Is there any divers that have anxiety or have claustrophobia, and what do they do about that when they're diving? Talk to people about their experiences. That can be number 2. Number 3, you don't have to put on the equipment, jump in, and go down to 60 feet. That's not how it works. Baby steps. So if we're feeling like, okay, I might feel claustrophobic in this equipment, Test it out. Put the equipment on land. See how it feels. Get in the swimming pool and test it out at 1 feet under the water, 2 feet under the water. With an instructor, you can do that very slowly. It's not just jumping in all or nothing. There's a lot of stages in between. There's a lot of ways to be flexible with this. Let's try this. Let's try this. If you don't like it, that's fine. You don't have to do it. But let's get flexible and see what other options we have besides just, I'm going to be a scuba diver and I'm going to be great, or I'm not going to try it because I have all these things holding me back. Other options. So my favorite way to use flexible thinking lately, because I'm living it, is when you move in with somebody. You have all these ways of living where you've lived independently or you've lived with your family, and you know how to do life in a way that's comfortable for you. It's the way that you've been taught. It's the way that makes sense to you. It's logical. Everything has its place, or you learn how to do life. And then you move in with somebody else who comes from a different family with a different upbringing, with a different set of lifestyle rules, and you have to negotiate, okay, how are we going to do this? How are we going to do this? There's some things that come up where you realize you have very different ideas on what is the most logical or best way of doing something, and you're not right and they're not right. It's just that you have two different ways that you've been raised to know how to do life. And so now you have to use flexible thinking to say, let's come up with some other options, because it's not working when I'm getting set in my way or you're getting set in your way. That's where a lot of conflict comes into relationships with that, where you say, this is how it should be. So in our families, when we're growing up, we learn how to do life. We learn how to relate to people. We learn how to communicate with people. We learn how to do the dishes. We learn how to do the laundry. We learn how to make our bed. We learn how to keep our houses. We learn how to clean. We learn how to do all of these home things, how to be in a family, things like that. And we take that with us into our future relationships. So now when you move in with somebody, you come with all of the things that you've learned, and they come with all of the things that they've learned. And those are not going to be identical. Your families, even if they come from the same culture, are going to have different ways of living and different ways of relating. So there's going to have to be a lot of flexible thinking in the beginning so that you can come up with different solutions, and it's not just my way is right because that's how I learned how to do things, or your way is right because you learned how to do things that way. There are certain characteristics of high conflict couples or high conflict families, and one of those is all or nothing thinking. And so how to combat that is learning the skill of flexible thinking, and it really helps decrease and de-escalate the conflict in your relationships. If you start trying this, I promise you'll see it. It's also much easier to see when the other person is not using flexible thinking. So it's helpful if you both know this technique and you both are on the same page about working on this and using flexible thinking, so that when you notice the other person is not using flexible thinking, you can say, hey, I think you're stuck in all or nothing thinking. Let's think of other possible solutions, not just mine, not just yours, but let's come up with 4 more and see what's going to work best for us. That way you're on the same page and you're not just calling out the other person and then they're getting defensive and then you're not really getting anywhere. You also want to recognize and have somebody hold you accountable for when you're using all or nothing thinking. Again, it's a lot easier to notice it in somebody else, but it's harder to recognize it in ourselves. So we want somebody holding us accountable, like, hey, you're only thinking that your way is the best way, and let's come up with other solutions. Let's use the example of the laundry. So everybody does laundry differently. Most people agree that you should separate colors or darks from the whites, but not everybody does that. So if you come from a family who just throws all the laundry in together, and your spouse comes from a family where you separate by color, you have your brights, you have your darks, and then you have your whites, so that can become a source of conflict. So you have to go into flexible thinking. What are our other options? Okay, so if we have option number 1 is throwing everything in together, well, that's one person's thought. Option number 2 is separating the brights, the darks, and the whites. That's option number 2. First, let's look at who's doing the laundry. Are we both doing the laundry, or is one person doing the laundry? That might play a role in what decision we make. Second, we can say, okay, what if we separate them only by colors versus whites? Okay, so that's one step less. That might be somewhere in the middle. We can also say, hey, if we can't agree on how to do the laundry, why don't we do our own laundry? You can do your laundry and throw it all in together, and I'll do my own laundry and separate it out because that's important to me. We can do it that way. There are more options than just one or the other. We figured out, we made a decision. The decision we came to is that we won't separate it into 3 and we won't throw it all in together. We're gonna separate the darks and the colors in one pile and then the whites in one pile. We might both do laundry, but we're gonna take turns. So I'll do laundry sometimes, you'll do laundry sometimes, but we have an agreement on how we're gonna do the laundry. Then we get to the laundry being finished, and then there's more conversations to be had. So some people leave it in the dryer for days and they get to it when they get to it, or they just pick something out of the dryer when they need it. Some people take it out as soon as that buzzer goes off. You take it out, you fold it, you hang it, you put it away. So we have different habits with how we do things. These are habits, but these are also learned things that we learned in our families or we learned when we were living on our own, and we have to move out of our my way is the best way and into flexible thinking. So all of these things, we have different ideas of how to hang things, we have different ideas of how to organize the clothes, we have different ideas of how to fold the clothes or when they need to be folded or all of these things. We have to move away from my way or your way versus what is the common goal. The common goal is to have clean clothes that's hung up and we're living in a peaceful and love-filled home. So how do we get there? Not by saying my way's right and you're wrong and I'm only sticking to what I know and what I think is best and brushing off your way because that's not the best way to do it and you need to convert to how I think is best. That's not going to leave you in a happy, peaceful home if you're only saying you have to do everything the way that I think is best. We have to get flexible and move around with things. So we talked about different things. We talked about how to move from all or nothing thinking to flexible thinking. We talked about how to use this with our friends, how to use it with ourselves, how to use it with a child, how to use it with our spouse or in our relationship. It can be used with bosses, coworkers, anybody, seriously, anybody. Flexible thinking is so, so good, and it's something very simple, but it can also be difficult to actually implement because we have ways that we think are right or best of doing something. So let's list out those possibilities and come up with the best solution for the common goal, not just for winning. We have to move away from I want to win because this is the best thing and I know best, to the common goal is for us to get along, for us to have a pleasant evening together, for us to do this together. And so how do we get there? How do we get there together? I hope this was helpful. If it was helpful, please give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe, and please let me know if there's any other videos that you would like to see regarding therapy or mental health. Please pray for my plants that they survive. I'll let you know, keep you posted. And in the meantime, I hope you have a wonderful week and I will see you next time. Bye!